Howdy folks, the news for the No Man's Sky Switch release has actually started coming in, and we've started with this article from Eurogamer. First of all, that is confirmation that the 4.0 update is coming directly with the Switch release. Now this article actually I haven't read it full, we're going to do it now, and this is kind of my first reaction as well. So we're going to see what all this might mean, but I know there are some really good bits in this. It's been another busy year for No Man's Sky. Not only has the exploratory space sim received 3 significant updates in 2022, delivering some of the most meaningful revisions, it's yet seen 6 years of post-launch support. Developer Hello Games has been working behind the scenes on bringing the game to a number of new platforms in the not too distant future: Switch, PSVR 2, iPad and Mac OS. Of those, Switch comes first, arriving on Nintendo's console alongside a major 4.0 update for all players. So they actually call it a major update. Sean recently went on Twitter and calmed people's hype, saying that this update wasn't going to be a huge content update. Now, I still think that's true. It's not going to be a content update. I've kind of been along the lines of that this is a feature update, so like a UI refresh and maybe some features, but not content. And when feature updates come out, when people think content, they're annoyed that there isn't a new content in the game. What they would perceive as content. So stuff like new items to craft or a new storyline to play, stuff like that. This Friday, 7th of October. So yeah, it's coming out this Friday. 4.0 might come out like earlier, like Wednesday or something, for all the other platforms. Ahead of release, Eurogamer sat down with Hello Games boss Sean Murray to discuss the madness of porting to Switch, No Man's Sky's eagerly anticipated 4.0 update, the studio's future and more. Man, I would love to get a friggin' interview with Sean, that'd be so cool. Friggin' life goals at this point for this channel. On the state of things in 2022. So incredibly, it's been over 6 years since No Man's Sky's infamously rocky launch, during which time the studios released a staggering 23 updates, massively changing the trajectory of the game, both in terms of its scope and reception. In general, Murray tells me when I ask him about the studio's outlook in 2022, I think we're a really happy team. I think we're sort of the happiest and the most productive we've been in the last 5 or 6 years. The launch of No Man's Sky, if I was to plot that on a graph, it was maximum stress, and there's been a gradual but steady improvement year on year in how we do things and within the team. I think we're enjoying it, you know? That's nice to know that they're really enjoying it. Murray attributes much of the studio's revitalised outlook to No Man's Sky's ever-growing community. We're so lucky to have a player base that's really engaging with this, and is really welcoming and happy, he explains. And we get to make updates that generally go down well. I love how he says generally, because there's always people who are unhappy. But that's just life. Not everyone likes everything. And we get a lot of buzz from that process. I feel like we've planted the garden, and that was the hard work. And we're tending to the garden now, so we can enjoy it. It's there for our enjoyment as well. There's a game there, and I can sit down and lose myself in it, talk with others on the team and get excited about features and stuff. I'm not saying it's not hard work at times, but it's a nice relationship. That's cool, man, living the dream. Hells yeah. It helps too, says Murray, that Hello Games has settled into a development rhythm that's able to support a closer relationship with No Man's Sky's community. To be fair, they have been reaching out more, just in general ways, like even with the meetup and stuff, and they just seem far, like, it's almost like they closed themselves in the shell when the bad launch happened, and just over the last 6 years they've been slowly just like, let's put a foot out here, how are you guys doing? You still cool? The first big updates, we were spending a year working on those, he explains, and the community would see nothing from us, and it would be a really different relationship. There was no room for experimentation. You couldn't just try something out and see how people would react. We were grafting on it for a year, crossing our fingers. And the reason we were having to do that is because we were doing these big fundamental changes, and we were laying a lot of groundwork for where we are now. And now we have much more solid foundations. I think it's a joy, you know? Any day there's 100,000, a few 100,000 people playing. That's crazy, by the way. And we're able to put things in the game, and they can be out very quickly, and then we can see how people react to it, and interact with it, and then build upon it. Yeah, that's cool, man. So now we've passed the sort of introductions and flavour text and stuff. It was nice, but now we've got some meaty stuff. So on No Man's Sky's 4.0 update. As it happens, No Man's Sky's next major update, known as 4.0, isn't far away, arriving this Friday, 7th of October, alongside the game's Switch port. Normally when we bump the version numbers, we've added a new platform. 2.0 was Xbox, 3.0 was VR, 4.0 is Switch, and we take the time to sort of revisit the fundamentals of the game a little bit. It's a moment where we can do that, where we feel we should, because we're going to have new players coming in starting fresh. Yeah, makes full sense. The whole numbers have always been, just more features and just the game's look and everything. It's going to be really interesting to see if there's a new look, because the current looks really nice. It's really sleek and sort of classic and kind of a bit classy. However, 4.0 marks something of a departure from previous major number bumps, and Murray's keen to keep expectations in check. So yeah, that's what that tweet was about. While 2.0 and 3.0, titled Next and Beyond respectively, were huge updates in terms of content, he explains, that isn't the case here. Instead, 4.0 brings extensive changes to what Murray calls the more design-heavy elements of the game. Balance, difficulty, structure. So yeah, this is all sort of background stuff. It's features, it's foundation. It's not content. So yeah, we need to keep that in mind before this friggin' update comes out. For me, he continues, this update is for if you've said, look, I played No Man's Sky and I wanted to love it, but I bumped off it a bit because it was a bit grindy. Or if you said, I want to come back, but it's been ages and there's so many updates and it feels overwhelming. You've probably had this experience where you've come to a game where it's been updated a ton, and sometimes those elements don't fit as cohesively as you'd like. We hear this sometimes, and I think it's true. And so what we've done in 4.0 is we've revisited a bunch of things that are really impactful from the design perspective. That slightly concerns me, just as one thing that's happened with No Man's Sky over the years is it's become easier. Now, that could be a good thing for many people, and it probably is, and it's probably in part why it's continued to become so successful. The fact that it's so much more accessible. I don't really want to use that. The word accessible is used in a number of ways, but they're often said it as the same way. It's really weird. So I'm not talking about accessibility when it comes to, say, colorblind mode and stuff like that. That's all awesome. However, a lot of people conflate accessibility with no challenge. It just concerns me when he says, but I bumped it off a bit because it was a bit grindy. Now, of course, grindiness doesn't necessarily mean challenge, but if I'm a firm believer that the games that will keep you in and want to make you achieve things in those games are the ones that you had to work for something. It's the reason I don't like duping. Like, people can do it as much as they like. It doesn't affect me. But for me, duping means whatever I get from it means nothing because it took no effort to get. Now, obviously, there's like levels of exploits and stuff, but let's not go into that. It's a whole big spectrum. Some exploits make some things possible, and they still require a lot of work. So it's like a different story. And then some require no work and just give you everything. Look, I've got some faith. They know what they're doing. I just hope it doesn't make it really easy, because it's already pretty easy already. But yeah, cool. It'll be interesting to see what it is, regardless. So it continues to that end. 4.0 features lots of streamlining in terms of the tutorial when you unlock certain things, what's available to you, all intended to fit No Man's Sky's 6 years of updates into a more cohesive whole. So that's cool. Although, my opinion on that, whether you care or not, is that No Man's Sky is a sandbox. By definition, it's not super cohesive unless they just mean it a different way. If you make it too cohesive, it's no longer as free. But they know what they're doing. They're very intelligent people. I've been thinking about this for 5 seconds. They've been thinking about this for months or years. So I'm sure they will have a good... always keep that in mind. If you make rash judgments, maybe they haven't thought about this. If you thought about it in 10 seconds of reading something, they have definitely thought about it. So that streamlining will also extend to the game's inventory system, which in turn has enabled Hello Games to massively increase what is effectively the level cap. That's interesting. So meaning bigger inventories and the opportunity to level up ships and weapons further than was possible before. So that's interesting. So bigger inventories, sure. But I don't think like multi-tools need that. The whole point of having multiple multi-tools in part, so that we could like have a multi-tool specific to something and really refine it and be able to switch. I think it lessens that if we just have a massive inventory, we can do everything in one. But maybe they don't just mean that. Maybe they mean multiple ways to upgrade. Well, they say opportunity to level up ships and weapons further than was possible before. they don't necessarily mean upgrade in some way. I really don't know how to take that. I'm hopeful that it means that there'll be other ways to upgrade them. So maybe there's ways to boost the stats of something. Maybe they're going to finally bring at some point, whether it's in 4.0 or not, classes of exosuit. So where you can find like better exosuits or something, that would be really cool. But there's no word of that in any of this, so please don't get your hopes up. But it would be an interesting thing to see very soon. And it does fit all this. And how they level up ships, they've just added cargo already. So they've already given us a massive amount of extra space. Obviously that doesn't allow for technology, but it allows you to put your cargo in there and use the main slots more for technology. So it doesn't seem right to me that they're just going to increase the inventories. It seems to me that they're going to make better ways, extra levels of upgrading to those things. So I'm hopeful that means an introduction of either new stats or a way to affect the bonuses and other stats we already have. So that would be cool. Obviously, there's then the question of, well, do we actually need that? Or you can destroy everything really easily with a maxed weapon already. So what will this mean? Again, I'm sure they've thought of this stuff because I have in like 10 seconds. So, we should give them the benefit of the doubt to a degree on this stuff. Additionally, 4.0 introduces No Man's Sky's first new game mode since the arrival of Creative and Survival in 2016's Foundation update, when we originally launched. Interesting, so explains more. We made the game a little bit more difficult and more grindy, perhaps because we didn't have the breadth of content we do now. But now people come in and they want to see a mech. They wanted the story. They want to go to the Nexus and things like that. And so we wanted to find that right balance for new players. Ooh, okay, so it introduces first new game modes into Arrival of Creative and Survival. So for those of you who don't know, Survival and Permadeath, basically they're harder, but it's in a really simple way. So Survival and Permadeath get roughly half or maybe a little less of the resources from mining stuff than normal mode. And if you go into a derelict, you'll get about 40% of the tainted metal that you would on normal mode. You will take double the damage from many things. It's very simple. It's not a complicated extra mode. Basically, the game just checks which mode you're in when you take damage, and on certain things it will double the damage, and on other things it will, hit you for harder over a longer time and stuff like that. So it's actually really simple. So this sounds like either they're introducing a new mode that doesn't change the current survival and permadeath. Well, they're definitely introducing a new mode. However, because there's something we've been asking for about the expeditions. So I think the future of expeditions, because there's so many, is not going to be just replaying that year's in December. I think it's going to be a game mode for old expeditions. So maybe at the end of the year, all the that year's expeditions get put into this new mode, where you can basically just choose which expedition you do. So you can do them at any time, not time locked. That makes sense for long term, because we're already up to like 8 or 9 or something expeditions. It's kind of ridiculous. We've got loads. That's already too much to do how they did in the Redux last year, where they did like 2 weeks per one. It's not too much, but that's like 4 months just on the current ones. And it's going to go bigger and bigger. So this new game mode, I think, could be old expeditions. It could also be maybe just like a revitalization of like survival and stuff. It's going to be really interesting to see though, because I love playing in survival and permadeath. So if there's more challenging and more interestingly challenging mode, that would be really cool. So it continues. As part of that goal, 4.0 adds a new relaxed mode. Okay, they're actually talking about it now. God damn it, I should have read further. So 4.0 adds a new relaxed mode, playable with either a fresh or existing save. Interesting existing saves, which Murray calls a very fun version of No Man's Sky, where the focus is on exploration, less on just surviving and grinding, where it's easier to see the 6 years of content that's there. This, he says, works well for first-time players, but I think it's also a common request from people who have longer playthroughs, who might want just a game where they kick back. Okay, that actually makes sense. I'm still hopeful for that whole expedition thing. I jumped the gun a bit there. I should have read forward. But yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so yeah, I do see this a lot in the comments. There are a lot of people who just want exploration. They don't care about all these pirate attacks and stuff like that. This is a direct answer to that, and can't see how this won't sate most people's appetite for that. So that's really cool. I also kind of hope okay, here we go. I'll read the rest before I continue. On top of that, among its various other revisions, 4.0 brings an overhauled survival mode. Yes, okay, I was just about to say that. And tools for custom games. Custom games, okay, that is cool. Survival is currently, I think, at its strongest in the first few hours as a game mode. Yes, I agree with that. More explained, so we've made it a much more challenging, more unique experience. Custom games, meanwhile, will enable players to create bespoke sessions that better fit their needs at any given time. That is frigging cool. Featuring options to adjust everything from controls to difficulty to how a lot of those sort of fundamentals work in terms of pacing of the game, which opens up a whole bunch of different ways to play the game that weren't there before. So this is essentially custom expeditions, kind of. You know, like, we were asking for this before Expeditions came out, and we love Expeditions, but the ability to sort of make a custom sort of start to a game, that brings up way more opportunities for, like we had the Amazing Race with Survival by Jason and Beeblebum, and Mandy, my apologies, Mandy, where we sort of just battled against each other trying to reach these points in the game. This would be way more interesting if we can like customize some things that happen in the game, some features. This is really cool. I'm really excited to see this. I can't wait for this. And the revision to survival mode is excellent. I wonder if that includes permadeath. So the way survival and permadeath work is survival and permadeath, even they share the same sort of universe for bases. So if you build a base in survival, you can see it in permadeath. Currently, anyway. I don't know if that will change with this. So permadeath is literally just survival, but you don't respawn. That's the only difference. Permadeath is you just don't respawn. Survival you do, but you lose, say, inventory stuff. That's cool, man. Right. So hells yeah. Oh, this is really exciting. I can't wait to look at this. On this week's Switch release, so maybe some more stuff in here. 4.0 arrives alongside No Man's Sky's Switch port, an endeavour that was met with both delight and, given the relative technical limitations of No Man's Sky console, a certain degree of incredulity among fans when it was announced earlier this year. Yeah, skeptical is a good word for it as well. It's just like skeptical that it will play well. Murray says he can understand skepticism. There we go. Admitting... Again, I need to read everything, I think, before I actually comment and stuff. I do agree, it's certainly on the face of it seems like madness, and I had that reaction myself, to be honest. Murray says his initial reaction to the idea of No Man's Sky on Switch was partly down to the nature of the game itself. This might sound bad, he explains, but I was unsure as to whether it was suited for mobile play. I mean, I've played long-form games on Switch before, but generally it's hard to know how much of the rest of the world is like me. Oh, I relate to that, man. Never know if what I'm doing is good just because I think it's good. Is it more focused on shorter, more mobile experience, more drop-in, drop-out, or whatever? However, Murray says all his apprehensions vanished when Hello Games adapted No Man's Sky for Valve's portable Steam Deck earlier this year. It has been a real surprise to me to see it in the top 10, top 5 of the most played games on Steam Deck for months and months. That makes us feel like, okay, maybe it's a good fit. And you know, over the last few months, as the Switch version has come together, I found myself really gravitating towards it. As for technical challenges of squeezing No Man's Sky onto Switch, Murray says Hello Games has made a concerted effort over the last 3 or 4 years to improve No Man's Sky's performance on both top-end and low-end machines. And to be honest, while people still give them crap, because sometimes it hangs and stuff, even on high GPUs, they've done a really good job of optimizing this while still adding loads of new content and crazy graphical upgrades. And so at some point, some folks on the team were like, I think Switch is possible. And then everyone said the worst thing, which is like, no, it's not. And that just made a bunch of people think, okay, well, I'm going to try and prove it is. Over time, it just showed more and more promise, and more of the team have gotten excited about it and piled onto it. Yeah, I semi-relate to this. If someone tells me I can't do something, I have to do it. Competitive is a good word for that. Or competitively motivated. As a result, No Man's Sky on Switch feels like a very similar experience to other platforms from a gameplay perspective, and surprisingly at home, with the team having had to make surprisingly few compromises to the core experience. By way of example, Murray explains the team had anticipated Switch would need its own version of the game's universe, expecting that the demands of procedural generation would make it impossible for Nintendo's console to have parity with other platforms. I would have assumed, and did assume that, but what really surprised me is that we haven't done. We've managed to keep them in parity. You see a tree on the PlayStation 4 version or the PS5 version, and it's there on Switch version. So discoveries are shared. If you name a plant or whatever, those are the same. Okay, that's cool. So, right, because of the no cross-plane stuff, because it's not multiplayer on Switch at the moment for release, as far as we know, so I wasn't sure if we were going to share discoveries. That's really cool. I'm glad we do. That's awesome. Ultimately, the studio opted to make two key features concessions. Firstly, the sprawling town-like settlements, introduced in last year's Frontiers update, will be missing on Switch. The most performance-intensive things, the very biggest constructs, are something we wanted to sort of avoid on that platform, explains Murray. But perhaps of more significance is the absence of multiplayer, which the team chose to omit as a result of its focus on performance and on kind of picking our battles, getting the gameplay across. As Murray puts it, multiplayer in No Man's Sky is important. I love it as a feature. It's great, but it's not our most important feature compared to other games that have multiplayer. Okay, the way he said that, yeah, I kind of get that. I think it is a really important thing, but we also had a massive community without multiplayer. We create our own multiplayer in the No Man's Sky community, so I kind of get that. A lot of people play No Man's Sky effectively alone, single player, and Switch is less focused on multiplayer as well. Because of the nature that you're playing it on a train, you're playing it on the toilet, out and about or in bed at night or whatever. Loads of people play multiplayer games on Switch, but it's a small percentage, and so our attitude is release, and see how people interact with it, and see what's important to them and react to that. So that's cool. So yeah, so if multiplayer is really important to like the whole Switch base, then maybe they'll see if they can make it work. But I get what they mean. Especially that does sort of work with the whole Switch thing. It's like for syncing discoveries, having an online connection isn't required. So the way it works is that you'll make a discovery, you'll name something, and that will be put into a queue in your save file. And then when you have a connection, if it's at that moment, then it'll start immediately. If it's later, it'll just wait until it has a connection to their servers, and then it will start uploading that queue of discoveries you've made. So if you actually use the upload all button, you'll have like a massive queue, and it can take days for that to update, because it's just huge. You can do that on a train and get home, you connect to your Wi-Fi, and then it will upload your discoveries. So yeah, that makes sense. As for whether those absent features might one day make it to Switch, Murray remains cagey. I think I never want to make promises about anything or allude to anything. Understandably, he learned from those many years ago. I really would like to avoid that. He laughs. They don't say he laughs nervously, but I imagine it was a... But at launch, Switch will include all 20 updates so far released on other platforms, as well as a new 4.0 update, meaning newcomers will have a wealth of toys to play with, including access to all future curated expeditions in their intergalactic sandbox. Beyond that, teases Murray, we already have a whole bunch of stuff lined up that I think people are going to be excited for. That's freaking cool. Hells yeah. So, yeah, they've mentioned the expeditions will be coming, and if they're going to get future ones, I don't see why they've done a Redux and they won't do another one in the future. So it makes sense that eventually everyone will get access to those previous expeditions on Switch too. On the future of No Man's Sky and Hello Games, this is another cool section. Awesome. 6 years on from No Man's Sky's launch though, and with the game in a healthier state than ever, it's hard not to wonder how long those updates can continue. I would love to know where we are in the journey, Murray laughs when I ask him, admitting he simply doesn't know. I just feel lucky that people are playing it, that people care, and I feel super lucky that the team enjoys it. I just think it would be horrible to try and make a team do updates they didn't have any ideas for it or even enjoy. And I also don't think we'd do it if the player base wasn't playing the game or enjoying it. Understandable, you know? But whilst those two things are true, it's sort of what we get out of bed for in the morning, knowing that people are playing it for longer. That's cool. Yeah, so that makes sense. They'll do it as long as they are motivated and happy doing it with ideas, and we want to play it. So yeah, that's really cool. And it sounds like they aren't short of ideas currently. They don't know how long it's going to last, but you know. I'll be honest and say it is so surprising that it's gone on for this long. It's lovely. Every day it's nice that we have that opportunity. But every year I'm like, I'm sure next year no one will be playing No Man's Sky and no one will have any ideas. We're surely out of ideas now or out of enthusiasm. And that's got to be true at some point. But if Switch comes out and it becomes a really important platform due to the number of players, then there'll be a whole load of enthusiasm. But I don't sit here and think I know whether those things will happen or not. I'm very, very fallible. Yeah, it's well said, to be honest. Yeah, because they're not forcing anything. They're doing it because they want to do it and they like it, and they still like it currently. That's really good, because it means it's not just a game that they're being forced to make for several years and they get tired with, but they're still got to continue everything. This is a game. This is massively a passion project, and it still is, and that's cool. But what of Hello Games' endeavours away from No Man's Sky? While Murray confirmed the studio is already working on his next project earlier this year, he remains reluctant to say more when I ask what else might be in store. I'm so hesitant to say anything about anything the studio is working on. But there's a surprising amount. That is one thing I'm really amazed by. There's a surprising amount going on, some of which people know about, and way more that people don't. And I think in 5 years' time, I'll look back and think, Christ, how did we do all that with this few people? I think our next project is quite far along, and it's a lot further along than No Man's Sky was when we announced that. And I'm enjoying that, I'm quite happy to be in that place. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's really good to be in a place of... this is something I've learned with the YouTube channel as well. It's always better to under-promise and over-deliver. That's just a massive thing known throughout life and business. It's something that I had to learn the hard way. I used to keep making these promises, which I fully intended to complete, without knowing the full scope of what was required to complete them. And the last year or two, I've really tried to not promise anything and just do my best to complete what I enjoyed doing and work on any promises I made in the past that I'm still motivated to do. But it's basically that. It's always better to underpromise and overdeliver. Would you like to see No Man's Sky 2? I feel like this is a weird poll to put. So if you've ever kept up to date on news from Mr. Murray and the team and stuff, they've always said they never intend to do a No Man's Sky 2. No Man's Sky is its own thing. There is no sequel. This is one game that they will improve and build upon until they are happy with the final result. And like he said there's no motivation left and stuff like that. They just want to do it and while they're happy doing it. And he's even specifically said they have no intentions of making a sequel. They would rather just improve the graphics of this one and so forth, like they have. And he's been saying that for like 4 or 5 years now. I don't think there's going to be, whether we would like to see one or not, I don't think that matters. But yeah, so that's the interview. That's really cool, man. Yeah, we got a lot of stuff in that. Yeah, we got some really good update news for 4.0. We know they're still making stuff. They still want to make stuff. They got loads of stuff in the pipeline. This new game that they're working on, which they haven't properly announced yet, but we know they're working on it, is going really well. It's already further along than No Man's Sky was in 2013. And yeah, that's really cool. So what do you guys think about this? Did I miss anything in this whole done article? Do you think some of my thoughts and opinions were completely off? I'm really excited. Hopefully Wednesday, maybe as late as Friday, we'll see. It really could be any freaking day this week now. So just keep your eyes out. I'll be updating you all on everything that comes out on the channel. So make sure you're subscribed and you've got the bell rung and stuff. Make sure to hit the like button as well on this video if you enjoyed this one. It was quite a long video, but tis what it is. We got a load of info, so that's cool. Also, what do you think about this kind of video where I'm literally just going through an article and giving my reaction and thoughts on what I'm reading? So obviously, No Man's Sky specific. Let me know. Thanks for watching, folks, and have an amazing evening. Shadaisy to you.